First benchmarks of Qualcomm Snapdragon X Plus X1P 42108 core CPU leak out, miserably low GPU performance. The first benchmarks of Qualcomm's Snapdragon X Plus X1P 42108 core CPU have been leaked, giving us a taste of entry-level or in-ended or no chips in Windows. Qualcomm Snapdragon X Plus 8 core CPU up to 20% slower in CPU tests, 40% slower in 3D-Mark GPU benchmarks. Qualcomm is preparing to launch more mainstream and entry-level Snapdragon X CPUs in its stack, such as the upcoming 8-core model, which is called X1P 42100. This chip is supposed to bring the Snapdragon X platform to more budget and mainstream audiences who want to experience the IPC segment. We managed to get benchmarks of a retail laptop featuring this particular SoC ahead of its launch. The specific model is the Asus ProArt PZ13HT5306_HT5306K. In terms of specifications, the Qualcomm Snapdragon X Plus X1P 42100 features 8 Orin CPU cores based on a 4nm process node. The cores are segmented into 2 clusters, with one of the clusters operating at 3.24 GHz clock speeds and the other operating at 3.42 GHz clock speeds. The max single and multi-core boost clocks are rated at 3.4 and 3.2 GHz. The CPU features 30 MB of total cache, with each cluster offering 12 MB of L2 cache. On the GPU side, the Qualcomm Snapdragon X Plus X1P 42100 CPU features the Adreno X145 integrated chip, which features a clock speed of 280 MHz and delivers 1.7 flops of compute, and that's really low versus the standard 4.6 3.8 flops for the rest of the SKUs. The Asus laptops are equipped with LPDDR5 x8448 memory, and the NPU remains the same, rated at 45 TOPS. It looks like Qualcomm prioritized NPU or I performance over GPU performance for this chip to align with Microsoft's Copilot Plus requirements. Note the following tests are conducted with the latest BIOS available for the laptop. Coming to the benchmarks, we first have Cinebench 2024, where the CPU scored 102 points in the single-core and 649 points in the multi-core tests. For comparison, the 10-core Snapdragon X Plus model on the Microsoft Surface scores 107 points in single-core and 809 points in multi-thread. It can be seen that while the single-core score takes a 5% hit, the multi-core performance falls by 20%. In Blender, the Snapdragon X Plus 8-core CPU took 2 minutes, 3 seconds, and 48 milliseconds to complete the standard render test. In Geekbench 6, the Snapdragon X Plus 8-core chip scores 2,422 points and 11,386 points in the multi-threaded test. Moving to GPU benchmarks, we have 3D-Mark Time Spy and 3D-Mark Steel Nomad. In 3D-Mark Time Spy, the Qualcomm Snapdragon X Plus X1P 42100 with the aforementioned X145 Adreno scored 1,025 points in total and just 916 graphics points with a CPU score of 3,181. The X Elite scores around 1,900 points in the same benchmark, while the X Plus ends up around 1,500 points. In Steel Nomad, the GPU scored 1,159 with just 8.6 FPS, which is also 40 to 50% lower than the X Elite and other X Plus offerings. Qualcomm Snapdragon X Plus 8-core 3D-Mark Time Spy. Qualcomm Snapdragon X Plus 8-core 3D-Mark Steel Nomad. Lastly, we have some actual gaming results in Shadow of the Tomb Raider. At low, the GPU scores an average of 18 FPS at 1080p, and in high 1080p settings, the GPU scores an average of 12 FPS. For comparison, the X Elite scores close to 33 FPS. As you can see, the performance isn't that great for Qualcomm's entry-level laptops, which focus more on the IPC side of things. The good thing is that these laptops will start at price points of $700 US, which might make them competitive against existing mainstream offerings, but with Lunar Lake and Kraken Point CPUs coming in the next few months, Qualcomm might see itself in a tough spot.